All right, that's what I like to
There
hear.
you go. I wanted to make sure, just a few minutes ago, it was pouring out here. I was hoping to share a little bit of the thunderstorms because I love them so much. But you know how much I like to be outside. So I'm sitting here under some cover in case it breaks in. And ready to go, dude.
I love it. I love it. And we were on the phone a little bit earlier, and the storms were coming through. But for those that know that you live out of New York, that doesn't look like New York behind you.
No, this is my second home, Pompano Beach, Florida, thanks to my college roommate. Yes, I did say college roommate. It means we met in 1976. I know I only look 29, everybody, and I really appreciate that you guys all tell me that all the time, but no, it's not the case. 1976 was my first year of college, and here with my buddy Bruce Deardens, which has become my second home. His second bedroom is now called Ted's room. And whenever you see me by a beach, I would love for you to think I'm vacationing, but like I was doing today with Brian, just working from a nicer place.
Ah, nicer place. I love it. I love it. So we're gonna kick this live for everybody. Thanks for joining in. I actually have I threw up Periscope and Meerkat too. So we got we're streaming on 3 channels, so I can see them on my side, bring in the audience. So we'll kick this live and introduce episode number 2. You ready?
I'm ready to go, man.
Let's do it. All right. All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is episode number 2 of the No Let Up Show, and I am co-host Brian Fanzo, better known as iSocialFans on Twitters, here with my co-host, mentor, and friend Ted Rubin, sitting outside beautiful Florida. How are you, friend?
I'm doing great, man. It's I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to kick off our second show. Looking forward to whatever guests we have here, our conversations, talking about some personal branding, and like I just put on my Facebook page, and a lot of other shit.
Yes, a lot of other shit, and really that's part of what we came together. Really, we want to talk about everything. We want to talk about life, right? And that our first episode, we really framed what No Let Up was and kind of given some background. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and even what some future episodes will hold. But so many people, Ted, were so excited to see that you were on Blab. I called it a great day for Blab when shout out to Samantha, the tweeting goddess, got you out there. I got you on Blab for the first time. We've been looking to do a show together for a long time, and this kind of works perfectly for us. And actually, the very cool thing is next week we'll do the show together live. I'll be in New York City with Ted, so we just confirmed that.
We're going to do the next show live from the Brand Innovators Fashion and Beauty event in New York City at Poppin' Headquarters on Broadway, baby.
How cool that would be. It's going to be pretty awesome. So, we're doing this.
Might even be able to have some other live guests.
We might. Hey, no let up. We're open to anything and everything. And for those that are watching this on Periscope and Meerkat, we are recording this and doing it on Blab. So if you go to blab.im, you can see us in there. Just search the hashtag No Let Up. You'll see it in there. Of course, using the hashtag No Let Up on Twitters. But we had a great conversation. We got to have a bunch of people jump in the hot seat, Ted, last week and ask lots of questions. We'll get some more people in at the end of the show this time. But really, some of the most popular questions and comments that people were asking were really around personal branding. Of course, Ted Rubin Socks, which now have their own hashtag and their own Instagram fame as Ted Socky, and really, kind of how all those things go together. I did a keynote yesterday, and the first thing they said was, "Brian, did you bring your hat?" And so I think it kind of works really well. So, Ted, I think as we get started, I think the looming thing that I think not everyone has heard, if they have heard you talk on podcasts and things, they might have heard some of the story, but bring people up to speed on why everyone sends you socks and why you post them on everywhere and anywhere, and it's become a cult-like following.
Well, it should be told. It was what I talked to people about. It was just very authentic and real. It's I love funky socks. I've been wearing them for years. My buddy John Andrews, my ex-business partner for Collective Bias, was on the same page. We'd wear them everywhere, and I started speaking at a lot of blogger conferences. And a bunch of the bloggers took notice of my socks and started taking pictures of them. A woman named Sandy Jenny, who goes by the Twitter handle of Organizer Sandy, came up to me after I spoke and said, "Look, I took these pictures. I'd love to take another one now. Do you mind if I share them?" I said, "Sure." Next thing you know, everybody is talking about my socks. I mean, I guess this is just what happens at blogger conferences. And the next morning, the first tweets out to me was, Ted, what socks are you wearing today? And this continued on for a few days of the conference. And then, okay, it was fun. I shared my socks. I figured it was over. I went home. And the next day, the questions just continued. And it built a momentum of itself. I mean, CEOs of companies, CMOs, people were asking me all the time, what are Ted's socks? What is he doing? So I started integrating them into what I do, into my travels, into the companies I go to see, into my personal life with my kids, and anything else I was doing. And it's just become, I've adopted it as part of my personal brand. I post them all the time. I started out, Joel Kahn said to me, hey, you should start posting Sakis because, selfie Sakis. I said, great idea. But next thing I know, everybody's using the hashtag Saki. So I was with Sue Zimmerman one day and she said, I made up this board for you. She makes up these hashtag boards.
Yeah, I got one right behind me.
Right. I actually have it inside and I forgot to bring it out. But and she said it was Ted Saki. She goes, you should start using Ted Saki. Which I did. And now Ted Saki is kind of my own hub for all the times and all the socks I wear. And other people will post to it occasionally when they want to get my attention with socks they're wearing. And, what it goes to is what I tell people. Find something you love. Find something that's authentic and that's you and you don't have to manufacture every day. Make it a part of your personal brand because it's recognizable. It makes it easy for people to communicate with you. It makes it easy for them to open a door with you. People who don't even know me will shoot me a tweet or an email or come up to me at a conference and pull up their pants. Yes, I'm talking about pull up their pants, not down. And show me those socks and say, what do you got on today? And then we'll take a photo together. And what it does, it makes it easy for them to reach out and communicate with me. And by the way, this works at every level. I have CEOs that walk up to me, and that's the way. Look, CEOs are not just like anybody else. They're not always happy or comfortable talking to somebody they don't know. Give them an easy way to open the door, and you're on your way to building a personal brand that will stay in people's minds, that will stay present, and will give you something to easily talk about all the time.
No, I love that. I think that's part of this ice, and really, it's the icebreaker, but it's also something that, I've been with you a lot of places. We've been, I've been fortunate to go places with you live, and it's so funny because people will plan that if Ted Rubin's going to be in town, they're going to plan their outfit and they're going to make sure they have socks on. I don't have them on now, but I had pizza socks on when I went on stage.
Nice.
Yes, and for me, I think it's that element of conversations and it was everyone was saying what socks are you wearing, but then they also ask how many socks do you have, and it really is kind of something that's kind of built up around that, and I think it's pretty impressive because R on R was something that I found you on, right? So the hashtag with your book, so it's kind of like a kind of a segue. So I think it's interesting how that's kind of grown into such a powerful thing.
For me, it's, return of relationship is the hub of everything I do, and everything comes off of that. Ted Saki, no let up, this dad won't quit. But I will let you know that I can manage to take it down a notch sometimes and relax because I am in the tropics. I was just on the beach a few minutes ago. So today is a Ted no Saki day.
It's a no Saki day.
Every once in a while, you will see me put up a post that says Ted no Saki. And this is one of those days. So let's take it off from here. I would like to jump in with one quick thing before we get going, because you and I had a conversation about this earlier. A buddy of mine who I spoke about in the last show, and I spoke about in the video that I did with Brian Kramer about No Let Up, Tony Luisi. Tony is the guy that introduced me to the idea of No Let Up. Tony is the guy that gave me the bracelet, the warm-up suit I wear, and all the other stuff. Tony has something that is called No. It's three separate words. It's not a hashtag. It's No Let Up. Tony's been preaching this for years. I met Tony when we worked together at 800 Flowers in 1998, 1999. Tony, like myself, has gone through challenges in his life. He's faced a lot of things. He's got 3 boys that are athletes. And Tony came up with the No Let Up concept. He uses it to inspire people through tough times in their life. He uses it to help raise money for charities. And I adopted it. Tony introduced me to it. Showed up at my house one day with a couple of warm-up suits, a hoodie sweatshirt, the bands, which I wear all the time. And now he sent me a bunch of them because I'm going through them. And he called me and said, hey, a few of my buddies, like 20, 30 people reached out to me and said, there's some guy doing a No Let Up radio show. Now, Tony doesn't come from the same social world all of us do. He certainly knows social, but his friends may not. And they thought it was a radio show. And he said he had checked it out. And he said, this is so cool. He wants to support us in any way he can. So Tony Luisi the man who introduced me to the idea of no let up that I started using and sharing and adopted, will be on the show with us next Friday.
Yes, and I'll drop that link here at the end of the show so you guys can subscribe to that. So I'm excited. We'll get another dose of the no let up. For me, the hat thing for me was kind of interesting. And actually, Ted, I don't even know if you know that you technically were the inspiration for the hat because of a conversation we had, and it was before South by Southwest. And I was talking about, it was my first time presenting there. And you were like, Brian, it's going to be fun, but, don't get overwhelmed. There's so much going on. It's hard to stand out in that crazy crowd. I'm glad you're going with our friends Brian Kramer and Joel Comm. And I remember coming home and being like, man, it's going to be really hard for me to stand out. And I'm pretty good at standing out. I'm loud and I'm always I'm not shy. But I woke up
you hear that, everybody? Brian Fanzo is not shy.
Shocker, I know, for everybody. But I woke up the Saturday before South by Southwest and I said, you know what? I'm gonna put my talk fast, tweet faster on a book bag. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna do this "Are you following me" thing on my book bag. But then I was like, my book bag, who sees that? And I've always been a hat guy, but I really wasn't wearing very many hats in the social space or even when I was presenting. So I went to Lids and put the hat on and did the hat. And then since then, now when people are asking me to speak, it actually says in their list, are you bringing your hats with you? So it's funny how those kind of things work where people want to take a picture, with the hat. And it was simply a play on words. If you're walking behind me, you have to ask your question, are you following me? And, it kind of takes twofold. Now, if I work forward, it might not work that well. But, I think it's, a very interesting, not only what kind of gets held on to, but we talk a lot about personal branding and it's making sure that you're memorable. And return on relationship is so much about that. Show you care is really about that.
I don't think it works for me.
No, it doesn't work with you. It's the, there you go. I love it. Maybe we'll have to maybe we'll have to do a no let up hat. Maybe we'll have to figure that out.
Oh, let's do that.
I like that idea. But so Ted, what are your thoughts just on maybe even the term personal branding? I would love if you're on Periscope or on Meerkat or on Blab and you have a question about personal branding. I would love to hear your questions. We'll bring them in. But I would love to hear your thoughts just on personal branding as a whole because I think it became a buzzword, but I don't think people really know enough about really what goes into personal branding and really what personal branding is and how it kind of builds into what you're doing now.
Okay, here's the way I see it. To me, it's being who you are and just letting people know who that is. So too many people think of personal branding sitting in a room brainstorming the way you might with a new company or brand saying, hey, who do I want to be and how do I put this out there and what's going to sell the best and what can I get people to adopt? But that's not really what it is. It's being who you are, finding that part of you that's something that you're not only willing to share but that you're comfortable sharing, that you think people will appreciate, and then letting people know what it is and then constantly knowing what it is. Now, here's something that I see a lot of people drop. They try things, it doesn't take up quick enough, they don't get enough traction, people aren't sharing it, next thing you know, there's somebody else, or they're using somebody else, or they're trying something else. I mean, I've been using the return on relationship hashtag since 2009, okay? And by the way, first of all, I made a classic marketing error. I thought everybody would know what I was going to use ROR. By the way, here's the story in case you haven't heard it. Why don't I use hashtag ROR? Well, I did use hashtag ROR for about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month. And within that period of time, in early 2009, I was immediately reached out to by the Ruby on Rails people saying, dude, you're hijacking our hashtag. We are ROR, and we don't want you using it. And there's two things I live by in my life. As some of you guys know, just be nice is part of who I am. I don't want to fight with people. I don't want to try to take something that necessarily isn't mine. And then I have another policy. It's called don't fuck with coders. Okay? If a guy can hack your bank account or shut down your blog or shut down your business account, don't mess with the dude. So I said to them, fine, I'm out. And then here's where the marketing error comes in. This is really important because we all talk about don't market to yourself, market to your target audience. But I marketed to myself. I immediately said, I need another hashtag. What can I do? I didn't ask any of my audience. I didn't go out to any of the people that I know and trust. I said, this makes sense. R-O-N, on, R for relationship. I'm going to use hashtag R&R. So I started using it, and I used it for a long time, and all of a sudden jokes started coming across. People started asking me, who's Ron R? Or, what is that about? Or who is this guy, Ron? And then people started asking me, why don't you use Ted R? Why are you using Ron R? And so obviously I realized that maybe I made a mistake here. At this point, I did reach out to my audience before jumping and making a change. And 99% of the feedback I got was stick with it. It's gotten traction. People know what it is. And it's a great story. So it gives you something to really talk about. But, when you do something, whether it's show you care or another hashtag, I see so many guys in this space jumping in saying, hey, I want to be like this guy or I want to be like that guy. They grab a hashtag and a month or two later, they're not using it anymore. Or they only put it in a couple things. If you want something to stick, you got to stick with it yourself. And not only because it takes time. Remember those 3 words. It takes time. That's true for anything. But also because if you can't stick with it, how else do you expect anybody else to?
No, it's so true. And I always say, when anybody I'm coaching on personal branding, I think the first rule is consistency. I don't care what you're doing on every platform, on everything you're doing, consistency is without question the most important. And I see some questions coming in. I'll pull those in a minute. But there's another thing where, there was a lot of conversations going on, like with personal branding. And a lot of people came up and asked me, like, Brian, where the hell did you come from? Right? And I don't believe in the concept of an overnight success. I believe it takes a lot of work. I believe what you're doing. But there are people that kind of come in and own something. And Ted, what you were saying means a lot to me because it's really what happened in what I was helping build from a personal brand was I knew that I was trying to own my story and I was going to work really hard. But my really light switch moment went off when I stopped worrying about trying to be what I thought other people wanted me to be. And I just became Brian Fanzo. And I literally are iSocial fans for the sense of what my social footprint became. And it was, social became easier, life became easier. And for me, the Show You Care hashtag actually came out of everybody asking me questions like, how did you get on Ted Rubin's radar? How did all of a sudden, Jay Bear, you go to dinner? How did you get the speaking gigs? And I was like, well, I started sharing their content, listening to them, and finding ways to show I cared. And eventually it was like, well, the hashtag's pretty easy. My philosophy is show you care. If you find ways to do it, you can make a difference. But I love that you said, Ted, not only do you have to own it and you have to live by it, but it has to make sense for who you are. Because if it's not who you are, if it's not what you're living, if you're not someone that's living on return relationships, or, we have, Brian Kramer with H to H, and, every time someone says human and he's anywhere within the vicinity, he starts clapping and, it's just part of, his makeup. I think that is the most important. Because to your point, if you're not living it and you're not celebrating it, why the hell would anybody else?
No, exactly. And the other part of it is, when people take on personas, then you're not being yourself. And it's very hard to keep up a persona of somebody you're not. I mean, think of it, even when an actor takes on a job, he tries to become that person because it's very hard. So just to give you a real life example, a lot of you guys know I had to fight to keep my daughters in my life. And I went through a bunch of years in court fighting for these rights. And every time I came off the stand, and I was on the witness stand a lot, unfortunately, I knew by the way, if you ever need a divorce attorney in Nassau County, Long Island, I know every single one of them. Not only did I interview them all, trying to figure out who might be the one that could help me, and Stanley Hirsch was the man. I mean, I felt it, and I picked him because he was in my gut. I know I'm going off point here a little bit, but every time I came off the stand, these guys would mob me and say, dude, if there was such a thing as a designated testifier, like a designated hitter in baseball, man, you would make a fortune. You're amazing up there. And my answer every time was, the only reason I'm so good is I'm telling the truth. I'm not making up stories. I'm not up there every time I'm asked a question going, let me see. I answered with everything that was in my heart and my soul and how I felt. And it's the same thing, whether it's marketing or personal branding or building your influence or building your reach and your communities in social. If you're yourself, it's easy. So I'm in a lot of different communities, and I'm a community builder. But no matter which community I go into, I'm Ted. I'm me. I'm return on relationship. I'm this dad won't quit. I'm just be nice. I'm no let up. I'm that guy. I don't have to fix it or change it. And that makes it easy. And that's what you got to do. And Brian, that's why I love you, man. And I know I'm throwing out some kudos here, but I connected with Brian because I hooked up with him. He wasn't really quite in the space like we are now. He was doing something else. And when his boss came to him and said, drop the social or we're dropping you, he said, no, I'm dropping you because that's who I am.
No, yeah, and thanks, and I love that, and I think, Ted, what you do really well is like what you're talking about there is, living who you are, and one of my favorite compliments that you can give me, no matter what we're doing, when someone meets me offline for the first time, and the very first comment they say is, holy crap, you are the exact same person you are online. Because that to me is the true essence. And I saw some comments in there. I've been preaching, I love Gary Vaynerchuk's new quote where he's talking about, trust is on the rise because transparency is on the rise. And I firmly believe that idea, transparency and oversharing are two different things. We won't get into that, rabbit hole. But I really think it's about authenticity. And the reason things are easy, the reason you can go up and give Ted a hug and he has so many pictures on his Instagram of people wanting to take pictures is because you are who you are. And I think that's a lesson for all of us, because people, when they talk about online and offline, the reason that they can't separate the two, they can't figure out how to mold them, is because they are faking their online, and they're not the same person as they are offline. And I will tell you, it works. If you fake it, it will work, but eventually it'll burn you out. You'll get burnt out, and then you'll lose the trust and credibility that you've been working on that entire time.
Well, and the other side of it, you brought up Gary, is that not only is transparency on the rise, but the ability to find out who people really are is on the rise. Because like I like to say, there's no privacy, and there really isn't, because you're gonna get found out. So it's like you said, you can fake it, you can get there, but it's not just about us and people being transparent, organizations being transparent. It's about that. It's almost impossible to hide anything anymore. So I just think it's important to get on that train. And again, you don't have to, and you can try to keep things private. But if you are, look, the future is getting very different. I don't think it's tougher. I don't think it's easier. I don't think it's tougher. It's different. But the beauty is that it is the age of influence, where anybody can build a brand, affect change, make a difference 24/7. And if you're not doing it, you're wasting that time. Every day that goes by is time that you could be getting people to know who you are. And guess what? You might have a secure job right now. Everything might be great in your family. Everyone might be healthy. God bless. But eventually something in that area is going to change. And you're going to need that reach. You're going to need that network. You're going to need that community to support you, or to help you find help, or to help you do something, or just to earn a living. I mean, and the tools are out there now. Don't wait until you need them. Start building that now.
No, I love that. And I always tell, one of the things for me, and live streaming has been a great, catalyst for a lot of people that I know, because I say, who's better at telling your story than yourself? And you can be your own PR agent, your own salesperson, your own marketer. And it's actually on you. If people don't know your story, if they don't know who you are, they don't know what you represent, the only person you can blame, not your mentor, not your business that you work at, not because you didn't get sent to training, it's you. Because I believe that's the most exciting thing about this digital age that we live in for me, is you don't have to be connected with someone that's, a TV producer to be on TV, or you don't have to be working for a giant IBM to have a website and a digital presence. You can really own it, and it really starts with being who you are. And I want to bring in one of the questions that Endlessly wrote here on Blab. She had said, for personal branding, do you like people to go under their names or under a different handle? So Ted, I'm curious your thoughts. Of course, you are Ted Rubin on social. You also run about 9 other Twitter accounts that are generally associated. So I'm curious what your thoughts are there.
For me, look, Brian, I gave you the same advice. I told you I thought you should change it to Brian Fanzo and use the iSocial fans in another forum. That's just my personal opinion. Now, you might have been too deep in, just like I was with R&R, and you felt, but if you're starting out today, or if you don't have a big footprint, I say use your name. Again, not everybody can. Sometimes those names are taken. Sometimes you can't get those handles. But you can also use your name doing something else. Like I just started 3 new Twitter handles in different verticals. Travel, actually 4 new ones. Travel, finance, beauty, and fashion. And I use the no let up, because those clearly aren't available as things. So I use fashion no let up. But to me, brand your name. It's who people will know who you are. It's what's going to help you. If you can't, there are circumstances where either that's not possible or you have something that might be better. But to me, that's the go-to as a first choice.
No, and surprising most people is I couldn't agree more. And I actually preach that in personal branding and everything I do. I was a little too deep in there, and I was kind of invested with what I have. I, of course, have bookmarked my first name. But because the digital space is so noisy and it's so hard to be found, it's so important to own that first name, last name, and make sure you have it everywhere. And so I agree completely 100%, because I think that's really important for people, because not only is it who you are, but it's really how people are going to search search for you. And for me, I own like BrianFanzo.com. I own all of those, and they're all redirected to iSocialFan. So if people are searching for that, they get redirected. But honestly, if I had gone back 2 years ago, I probably would have owned Brian Fanzo, left iSocialFans for something else. Unfortunately, I had a bunch of accounts that were all with fans at the end. But I love the question because I get it a lot, and I usually surprise people when I answer that I recommend first name, last name if you're starting out. And even if it's something where your first name, last name is taken, maybe it's just your last name or your first initial last name, because remember, they are searching for that. I can tell you, I check on Twitter every single day for people that use @BrianFanzo. And you know how many times it happens? 20 to 30 times a week. Someone tweets at me @BrianFanzo. Now, I, of course, am social listening, and I'm reaching out to those people, letting them know I'm on this account, and I don't use that account. But that's more work for me. If I'm recommending it for you, I say own your first name, last name. It takes some of the work out, and it makes it easier to be found.
No, absolutely. To me, it's just an important thing. My blog is tedrubin.com. My blog has a name. It's Straight Talk. When I first started using it, straighttalk.com was available, but I just used that as a title, and I wanted my name on it. So yeah, I think that's good advice. And also, if not, I mean, I love what Brian does. Search your name. I do it all the time. I find a lot of comments where people don't even tag me. They're putting out stuff that just says Ted Rubin, even on Twitter without @Ted Rubin. And I always look for it because I love replying to those people, because most often they don't expect a reply. They don't expect you to find that. That's another way to make yourself remarkable, to make yourself stand out by doing something that's unexpected in a good way, by recognizing somebody, by sharing something for somebody that you might not know. I have a new newsletter. I have a newsletter that goes out on Sunday nights, which is from tedrubin.com. And I just started a new one for Return a Relationship, where every week I feature somebody else's work. So it's not about my stuff; it's about somebody else. So I featured Brian Fanzo, I featured Kelly Loubet, I've featured some other people, and every week will be somebody new in that. So listen, if you know any good bloggers out there, anybody producing some great content that you think needs to be recognized, let me know. I'd love to share their content.
No, I love it. And there was a question. Emily Questions actually asked, if someone has your first name, last name and hasn't tweeted since 2012, how can you get control of that handle? And I've actually gone through this with 4 or 5 people. It's a pain, but the rule of thumb for Twitter, before you can even submit the form, and if you submit the form, then you have to, they'll kind of get back to you. But you have to submit a form. They kind of favored a tweet, they could have retweeted a tweet or tweeted themselves in the last 6 months. If they have not, you can submit the form. So if you search through Twitter, and I think it says it's Twitter, it's rediscover username or something username in the Twitter search function. There is a form to fill out, but I've heard good and bad things about it. I've been successful with the 4 that I tried, but I can tell you I was also backed by a brand. One was the CEO of my company, so I stayed on top of that. I reached out to Twitter contacts, and I was like, hey, I'm getting this one back. The person hasn't used it since 2010. I see you shaking your head, Ted. Have you not heard luck on that?
It's very difficult. I got a Twitter handle back for a friend that was actually owned by the original owner of his business. It just hadn't been used. But even that was incredible. I had to reach out to every contact I had at Twitter to finally make it happen. And the forms, you fill them out, you don't hear back. So all I can say is absolutely try, but don't count on success. That's all. Get started somewhere else. And the beauty is now is that you can change your tweet. Back in the day, if you wanted to have a new handle on your Twitter, you had to start a whole new account and try to migrate people over to it. So you don't have to do that. So just do what you're doing, pursue the handle that you might want. And if you eventually get it, you just change the name on yours.
No, I love it. And I just changed the topic and I forgot the no let up. But for everybody that's watching right now, I love the questions that are coming in. I love the discussion, and I'm glad people are asking kind of questions about personal branding as a whole. And I just did it again. You believe that? I'm pretty good at multitasking, but apparently this time it didn't work. But I would love, Ted, when we're talking about personal branding and really thought leadership, there's a lot of people that, I think, misunderstand what thought leadership is, and the fact that you actually have to do something, and there is no easy button, just like there is no shortcut in relationships. And I can tell you, Ted, when I first discovered you, I remember very early on being like, I want to be like Ted Rubin. And then later on, the closer I got like Ted Rubin, I realized that guy works his ass off. And not only is it no let up, but he's busy and he's connecting people and he's a people person and he's responding to people on social. He's traveling around the world, and it's not an easy job. But I think there's oftentimes people come from the outside in, and I was even guilty with you, of saying, wow, that's the what I want to be. And it's not saying it's easy, but it's like, wow, I think I could do that. And it's more than a hashtag. It's more than writing a book. So could you kind of talk to that? Because I think there's a lot of our listeners that are probably at that point where they're like, man, I really want to get there. But I mean, you've been a CMO. Your background and history is so, so broad in what has allowed you to build what you have today. Definitely was there no easy button. There sure as hell wasn't a shortcut.
It's no let up, baby. I mean, I'm not saying I'm proud of this, but I wake up stressed every morning. And I wake up stressed, not the kind of stress you have over really serious problems, but the stress of like there's so much incoming. And I just feel very committed to keeping up with that incoming, to pushing out my content all the time, to answering the questions that come in on 20 different platforms, on saying, oh my shit, I didn't snap enough today. I've got to get to that. And oh my God, I haven't done a Periscope in like 2 weeks, but maybe I'm committed to Blab right now. And I'm doing this with Brian, but even with this, people are asking me to be on Blabs every day. And I give thought to that. Do I really want to be on a Blab every day? Do I want to take the time to do that, which has its limited outreach and community building, to what I can be doing on other platforms where I can be reaching and touching a lot of people in a lot more places in the same amount of time? And not only that, do I want to dilute my brand? Do I want to be on everybody's Blab show? And then who cares about showing up for Brian and Ted? I saw Ted, 20 times last week. So, there's a lot of this work, there's thought, there's strategy. And the beauty of this world is you can do it all and change it tomorrow. I mean, we don't have to make plans 20 weeks out, 6 months out. We don't have to make photo sessions where we're going to get someone to take a photo and it's going to take weeks to get it back and put it up there. Keep trying things, keep doing things. But yes, it's a lot of work. If you really want to get that, you've got to be out there. And then you also have to think, who am I? Like, don't think I'm no different than you guys. I look at Gary Vaynerchuk. I look at Jay Baer. I look at Brian Kramer. I say, maybe I should be doing what they're doing. And oh my God, Brian set up this whole site around this book. And Gary started an agency and Jay's doing this. And I'm like, and then I have to take a deep breath and say, I'm not Gary. I'm not Jay. I'm not Brian. I'm Ted. And I'm going to do what works for me and what makes me feel good. And what makes me feel good is doing what I call getting bought, not selling myself. So I'm out there building my brand, saying what I think. Straight Talk is my blog because I say it like it is. I don't back down when people, come up against me or try to bully me or grab a few people together. I had a situation like this recently with the dad blogger community. And I try to let them know that, first of all, I'm trying to help them. I'm giving them feedback that's worthwhile. Yes, I am making fun of them a little bit on the one hand, but I'm also using that to show them how other people are viewing them. But I will persist in saying what I believe, regardless of what might happen on their end. Again, as long as I'm not doing something that's disrespectful or something that's really off the charts or something that is inappropriate, and I'm also the first one to say when I made a mistake. And if I did, and someone pointed out to me, and by the way, I've called a few different people. I know I asked you, Brian, to watch the video I made, and a few others when I talked about dad bloggers with Marketing Scope and Eric Vidal. And a lot of people gave me feedback and said, hey, I think what you did was great. Matter of fact, it will be on my blog this weekend, so look for it. My little chat, there's a little bit of stuff in there about mom bloggers, but mostly about dad bloggers. I hope you guys will check it out. But back to your original question. If you want to do something, if you want to build a personal brand, it's like any startup. I mean, you hear entrepreneurs talk all the time. What is the joke I heard recently? It's been around forever. I'm sure you guys have heard it. That I work 80 hours a week so I don't have to work 40 hours a week for somebody else.
Yes.
I mean, that's what entrepreneurship is. And, so very often people start a business and they're totally committed. I have to work 24/7. I've got to be thinking about this business all the time, but they don't think about their own lives the same way they think about their business. And our lives, and by the way, our lives are 24/7. You've got your business, you've got your family, you've got your home, you've got your kids, you've got things you're doing in the community, you've got groups that you're supporting. It's no let up. And you've got to start treating yourself and your personal brand the way you would any startup. And that means working, thinking, doing around the clock.
I love it. No, it's so true. And the comments are coming in and pouring in for on that. And I talk about it all the time. Building relationships and doing what you do on social. When people don't realize that you have a strategy behind it, you're doing it well. But don't mistake that there isn't a strategy for what you're doing and having a rhyme or a reason and really working hard. And, the term authenticity is kind of thrown out there a lot. And I'm glad you brought up the concept of working hard and the 80-hour work week. But one of the reasons that I talked about a little bit last week for those that are tuning in and the whole idea behind No Let Up is, constantly working, but it's also working smart. And that to me really means a lot because I struggle with that, right? I can work really, really hard. I can work hard in many directions on many different things. But is that getting me ultimately closer to my goal? Is it getting me to where I want to be? And ultimately, is it making me happy? And I still firmly believe is if you love what you're doing, you're not really working. But if you love what you're doing and you're working too hard and not working smart, I can tell you, not only will you get burnt out, but you'll get lost on the way. And my friend Rachel Miller, who I co-host the show on Mondays with Social Business Hour, she's been saying a lot of things about really, kind of making sure people not only share and celebrate the wins, but also share and celebrate what all the hard work you do along the way. Because it's something that really, was important to me when she mentioned that, because I have a lot of people that come up to me and say, Brian, they want to do what I'm doing. There's these things. And I think maybe sometimes we forget to expose them to the hard work and the failures. And maybe, yes, I got these speaking gigs, but you realize I did, the last year and a half, every one of the speaking gigs I took was free. And I was paying for that out of my own pocket. And now it's finally paying off. And I think when someone looks at things from kind of a distance, it's hard to see that. But I wanted to get to another question, and I want to open up the seat so we can get some people in. Ted, your thoughts, when Snapchat came out and Periscope came out, one of the most humbling experiences for me is you're Ted Rubin, right? I mean, there's so many people look up to you. You've changed so many people, inspired people. And you reached out to me and said, Brian, we need to get up. You need to show me what this Snapchat is and Periscope is, and we need to connect. And we have a great reverse mentorship. And I think it's one of my favorite things that social has brought me is you can help me on business and life advice. I can help with some of these technology. But one of the questions I get a lot is it important to be everywhere? And if so, how does that all work? Because you'll hear the adage, I'd rather you be great in a few places than good everywhere. But I can tell you, Ted Rubin, you do an amazing job of being just about everywhere. And I think some people might look at that and go, wait a second, you believe that, yet Ted Rubin is working his ass off to be, prominent on Facebook, prominent on Instagram. You're on Snapchat regularly. You're doing live streaming. So what are your thoughts there on that idea when someone's doing their personal brand about trying to embrace all the shiny objects?
I think a lot of it, first of all, be careful with the whole shiny object syndrome, number one. Number two is a lot of it depends on your time, what your commitment is, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. So one of the reasons I think people should try out all the platforms, at least in the beginning, is just so they can find out what does work best for them. Where do they want to spend most of their time? What platform connects them with the community they're looking to be connected with. Let's not forget that just like you can't be everywhere, or you can try, but everybody you want to connect with isn't everywhere. And one of the reasons I'm obsessed with being on a lot of different platforms is that I'm trying to connect with a lot of different groups. I'm trying to understand millennials or young, let's just call them younger people. I'm trying to understand changes that are happening. I'm trying to understand technology. I also want to just have a feel for these platforms. So I'm not fully committed every day to Snapchat. I'm in and out of there on a regular basis, but I want to understand it. Then I'm trying to see this is what I always do. I go to you, Brian, or somebody before you, someone like you, but now you're my guy. Okay? New platform, walk me through it. I do want to give a shout out here to Samantha Kelly, because not only did she get me on Blab, but she made a great video that's on YouTube that walks you through some of the basics of Blab. So if anybody wants that, just search it on YouTube. It's great. Or reach out to me, tedrubin@gmail.com. I'll send you the link, or to Tweeting Goddess on Twitter. I'm sure she'll send it to you. But what I do is I go to you, I say, Brian, explain to me how this works. Because for me, the technology just doesn't come naturally. And it would take me hours and hours to learn what you can walk me through in under an hour. Okay? And then I look for your insights. I want to know, how are you using this? I want to understand what you're doing with it. And then I figure out, how can I make this platform work best for me, for my brand, for what I do. So for instance, I like Snapchat because I'm trying to understand it. I love Snapchat because for me, it's pure social. It's engagement, it's communication, and it's sharing. Don't bother being on Snapchat if you're not doing that. But I also like that it's one-to-one and one-to-many communication in one place.
Yes.
So, I can make a snap. I can send it to the community, but I can also direct it individually to different people. I can have conversations with them while I'm doing it. But what I'm doing mostly with Snapchat is I'm feeling it out. I'm finding the few people, I like to say, communicate with people the way they want to be communicated with. So if you want to communicate with Ted Rubin and do business with me, the best way to do that, the best way to get on my radar if we're setting something up, is email me or text me. Those are my two primary platforms for follow-up. Whereas Brian Fanzo, and I was having this conversation with Brian today, the best place for, I'm not saying this is, it might be Twitter, it might be text, it might be somewhere else. If I want to communicate with Brian, I have to communicate where he wants to communicate. So I'm finding the people on Snapchat that's where they want to communicate. I'm finding the people on Periscope, which is where they're going. But then I also, to round this all out and answer your question, I feel that different people are in different places. It's the reason I have so many Twitter handles, because if I can touch people under different topics, under different things, and keep me a big part of their mind, build my brand awareness, then I'm going to have them seeking me out where I spend most of my time.
I love it. I love it. And you know what? We're going to open up the sea and bring in some questions from the video spots. But I will tell you this, and for everyone that's listening, Ted Rubin said he listens and learns from other people. If Ted Rubin isn't doing it, what the hell is your excuse? I'll leave you guys with that, because I think that's an important message you talked about. Because I think, unfortunately, people will assume that Ted Rubin knows it all and isn't, the listener. And, you preach listening. And I think I love hearing you say that, because so many people really need to kind of remember that you don't have to know everything. It's important to just know other people that know what you don't.
Two quick things before you finish on that point, because you just brought it. Number one is watch your employees. See what they do. Don't admonish them for things they're doing. Pay attention and watch what they're doing. Understand how they work, how they communicate, how they engage each other. That's going to make them better. And then the second thing is I hear people complaining all the time about their kids on devices and how they ban the devices, or they tell their kids they can't use it. But at the same time, these same people are marketers, and they're complaining they don't understand how millennials communicate. They're sitting right in front of you. They're at your freaking dinner table. Watch them. Instead of telling them to put away the device, watch how they're using the device and learn from them. Thank you very much. Hello, Jennifer.
I love it. I love it. Hi, Jennifer. And Beth.
Hey, Brian.
Beth, if you're listening, you have to hit the, there's a OK button on the top of your browser.
Awesome. I love Beth Rose.
Yeah, I do too. And so, Beth, at the top of your browser, there's a button that says allow for the video and allow for the microphone, and then you'll be able to pop in there. But hey, Jennifer, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you guys?
Jennifer, I'll blow you some kisses too.
So as Brian mentioned in the comments, this is so on topic with what I've been thinking about today, because I mentor a group of students, freshman students at NC State University. Today we were talking about resumes, and I remember when I was a student at State many years ago, that was when I was first introduced to the idea of personal branding. So I mentioned this to them today, and when I said personal branding, like a glaze went over their eyes. They were like, wait, what does that even mean? So it surprised me that they hadn't heard of it, because these are all, millennial kids. And in my mind, it's like, let's stop talking about a resume and let's talk about your personal brand. What are you actually putting out there? Because all these kids, they're on Snapchat, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, Twitter, everything. And it's not so much just about a resume anymore. They actually have to look at the big picture. So Ted, Brian, I'd really be interested to know, based on your work, your research with millennials, how do you think we change the conversation with this up and coming class of kids going through college, who now their lives are already on social media, and they may not realize that all of that is reflecting more than what that paper resume reflected for the three of us?
Well, I have a lot of opinions on this. So first of all, you have to remember they're kids. Mm-hmm. Okay, forget that they're using all these platforms. Forget that they might use them better or more efficiently or more often than any of us do. Mm-hmm. Because you're looking at it, we use it in a very different way. They're still kids. They're just having fun. They're communicating. They're thinking their life is going to go on forever, that they're all going to graduate colleges and get great jobs. They're not thinking about personal brands. I mean, there are that small group that are, but in general, what you have to remember is you're talking to kids, and you've got to talk to them that way. So if you start talking to them as their mother, or as their lecturer, like, what are you doing? You should have your own brand. What you need to do is you have to get them at the right moments in the right frame of mind. Mm-hmm. So it has to be in a class about business branding, and then weave personal branding into it. It's got to be something where their mindset is focused on learning, rather than their mindset focused on, you're old, and by the way, look how young you are. But to them, you're like old, and they're saying,
yeah.
They're saying, leave me alone. Now, it's so important.
Yeah.
That you approach them the right way. Now, I talk to groups of students, and one of the things I tell them is, how could you guys not have a blog?
Right.
How could you not own your own piece of real estate that isn't owned by another company? And again, talk to them in a way they understand. Talk to them about owning a home and renting a home. To bring an analogy in that brings it into their world, because right now their world is all social platforms. They don't think they're ever going to disappear. They probably haven't been around long enough to see the ones that did disappear, like MySpace, like Friendster, like other things. They think they're going to be here forever. They're being convinced by these brands that this is their home and this is what they can build. So here's one of the things I say to them. Especially the students that are paying for their own education or that are feeling the pain of their parents paying for their education. Unlike my daughter, who has no freaking clue, who on top of me paying for U of P, along with my ex, she's charging on my credit card like there's no tomorrow. Although it was supposed to be for emergencies. But Dad, it was an emergency. We couldn't get into the club. Okay, you're right. That is an emergency. But, but if you talk to these kids and things like, hey, you're spending, whether it's 20 grand, 40 grand, 60 grand a year for college, you're paying to produce content. You're writing papers. You're taking part in classes. Start taking that content and posting it into a blog. Take that work that's being graded. By the way, my blogs, nobody grades it for me before I post them.
Right.
I have been thinking about sending them to Brian and getting him to go over them and correct them and edit them for me. But I don't know if he has the time. So I put them up there and then they get their criticism. But all these kids are producing so much content that they're improving and they're working on. Start putting it out there. Give people something to find other than their social posts. Because look, they're going to get those pictures drinking beer and doing bongs and doing all the other stuff. And I'm a personal believer that it really doesn't matter because as every year goes by, those HR people are becoming younger and younger.
Yes.
All of them did the same thing, had the same issues. So that's not something to worry about as much as what are you putting out there in addition to that somebody can find when they search for you.
And you know what? And I kind of blame the school systems a little bit because no one tells you in school that you should have a blog, you should own your assets. That's not something that's part of the problem in my opinion. But there's also an element where I believe in teaching and inspiring change, not forcing change. And my 5-year-old proves me right on that every day when I try to force her to do something. Yet I teach her to do something and she does it so much better. So I like to kind of reference the idea that, and this is a line that I use all the time. And I every digital action you take is a way of telling your story. And ultimately, it's what you share, it's what you like, it's what you post, it's your profile picture, it's your description on every channel. And I think so many people today, especially younger millennials, I'm the pager-wearing millennial on the upper side, but for me, I think so many millennials, understand first impressions and understand the power of social media, but I think they are kind of in that world where, well, eventually people are going to be okay with, people smoking pot or doing keg stands. And I couldn't agree more, but I think part of it comes back to is, well, what's the story you're telling? And I think that resonates because, the reason the millennials or younger generations are great at Snapchat is it takes creativity. And if you're really good at storytelling, you can do some creative things on those kind of platforms. So I love the conversation kind of flipping to really creativity and kind of digital storytelling.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thanks, guys. I'll back out so someone else can come in and talk.
And so nice meeting you.
Reach out anytime. You know how to reach me? It's easy enough to find me.
Will do. Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Beth Rosen. What happened to Beth Rosen?
I think she was resetting because her computer wasn't allowing her to jump on.
Okay, girl. I want to just tell the world that I'm in love with Beth Rosen. If she wasn't married for something like 30 years, I would probably be moving to Chicago and sweeping her off her feet. I just want to declare that to the world.
All right, I love it. How's it going, Ari?
Hey there, Brian and Ted. Thanks for taking me in here. And you guys, first, it's a great show you guys are having on here, and personal branding is something that's close to my heart. And for Ted, the kind of question and with the comments is like, for us in the hotel industry, personal branding is very important. And what I see is that when you focus on the personal branding, it also leads to happiness, which also leads to more productivity. I think I'm getting a lot of background noise there now, but
thank you, Bernie.
Yeah. Did you hear what I said? Or?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, and so from my perspective, Ted, it's like how can we get, from my perspective, a hotel to understand the value of personal branding and also bringing it into the points that Brian was talking about, the storytelling, that we actually encourage the employees to do more personal branding and tell more the stories for us, from my perspective, the hotel, so they can see that it actually connects between happiness and productivity.
That can be a real challenge, especially if you're at a company that is firmly against it. What I say is that you've got to do the best you can do. You got to take yourself, maybe gather a few other employees, start building your personal brand, start sharing about the company, start sharing about the business, start sharing things that, without them asking you to. Start building up the brand using your personal brand and demonstrating for them. It's always best to show people. Like Brian said it earlier. If you lead by example, if you do things, it's going to make it easier for people to follow. So where's that coming from? Hello?
I don't know where that's coming from.
Wow, that's kind of weird. It's not here. Okay, I'm going to try to speak through it. Apologies for that. But what I'm saying is, build your brand, build your reach, build your network, your communities, and start sharing every day something about your company. Do it multiple times a day, whether it's events that are happening there, things, pictures, photos on Instagram, and give them something to see so that they can see the benefit of it.
Well,
and then I always say, try to find somebody at a higher level to be your champion. Somebody who you can sit down with, have coffee with, have dinner with, spend some time with. Maybe not convince. Again, if you work with them, don't try to convince them on the very first time. Take time. Work on it. Do it little by little. Get them to start following what you're doing. And then hopefully you can get a champion within the company and help you do that.
No, I love that. And I think, the idea of, companies are great because they have great employees. But I think ultimately employees want to know that companies care about their quality of life. So I love that idea. I love that companies take personal branding and start training employees on the power of personal branding. So it's a great conversation for sure. Thanks so much, Ari. We'll open the seat back up. Thanks, my friend. How's it going, Bonnie? Oh.
Hello?
Bonnie, I don't hear you.
Sorry.
Yep.
I'm in Panera, so I muted myself so it wouldn't be noisy, and then I forgot I muted myself. So,
okay.
Hi, Ted. I appreciate blabbing with you, and hello again, Brian.
Hello.
And so, first of all, so I'm a former educator, so I can definitely speak to schools, and I got out of being an educator because of what's going on in schools today, which is to the detriment of kids, period, all kinds of kids. Thank you, Common Core. But Ted, I want to say, before I say anything, Ted, I want to say thank you for walking the walk, because the kinds of things that you talk about, you actually do. So I don't even know who it was in somebody's home, and you did like a Periscope or something.
Periscope.
No. I know Periscope. I'm on that several times a day, but it was like a Periscope. You did like Periscope, and then somebody was Skyping the interview. I don't know. It was in someone's home. Anyway, and you had talked about the fact that you just pick random people and tweet them and retweet their tweets, and I'm one of those people. And so, although I do not consider myself random, but I noticed it, I appreciated it, and it meant a lot for two reasons. First of all, you did it when I was a full-time blogger as opposed to which I am now. And so that showed me that, here's somebody who is a noted person, right? Here's somebody who has notoriety, who a lot of people know, and he's retweeting something that I did. So, it meant a lot. It showed that I need to be retweeting other people's content. And it showed me that you are exactly who you say you are. And one of the things that I talk about all the time on Twitter, across 10 social media channels, on Periscope multiple times a day, on Daily, at least on Blab at least one time a day, is authenticity and being exactly who you are and making sure that you have a consistent message across social media channels. And I have two teenage boys. So one of the things that I tell them is every single thing they put out there is forever. And they're smart kids. They're straight A kids, but they still think that Snapchat disappears. And I'm like, oh, no. It doesn't just disappear just because you may no longer see it. or just because your followers no longer see it. I'm like, no. And so I start showing them lists of people who have had college scholarships yanked, people who have lost jobs, people who have been yanked from the interview process, all because of something stupid and short-sighted that they did on social media that the athletic division found out about, NCAA found out about, AAU found out about, their high school found out about, or their future no longer employers found out about. And people need to see that not just what they do digitally shows who they are, it's what they do every day, and how they do it shows who they are. How they play on the basketball court. My kids are basketball players. How they play on the court. Are they a team player? Or are they an ISO player? Every single thing they do matters. And it's hugely important.
To put it in simple terms, a brand is what a business or a person does. A reputation is what people remember and share. So keep in mind with whatever you're doing, your reputation. And then also, just a little bit for you, keep in mind that they're kids and this stuff's going to happen. And you've got to recognize that, yes, it's great that you're putting in their heads that they're mindful of it and they think about it. But let's also take a breath. There's a lot of content out there. And yes, let's just not be too stupid, but also you can still have some fun.
Well, I think that also kind of comes down to like the beauty of authenticity is you are who you are. And I think we are going to change this idea where people, last time I checked, nobody is freaking perfect. No brand, no manager, no business, nobody is perfect. And I think sometimes we look at things and people screw up one time and we cast a shadow and we don't let them. And we have to remember, would we have done the same thing? Like if Snapchat existed when I was in college, thank God it did not. I don't even want to know what would have existed in places. But because of that, I kind of look at a different view. But I agree the school systems are a little tough. But I also hope that we change the mindsets of our leaders to remember that they don't want perfect. They want real. And if they want real, you're going to get some stuff that's bad and some stuff that's not perfect. Unfortunately, it takes a while.
Real trumps perfect every time. But Bonnie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Also giving us that reminder, the term I use when I'm talking to my daughter is I say I'm putting on my dad hat. And allow me to have it on for the moment. Hey, Anthony, how you doing, man?
Great, Ted. How are you?
Good.
Hey, I'm great.
Thanks for patiently waiting.
No worries at all. Just real quick, 3 things I want to accomplish because I know Brian's got a bolt of things. Brian, you mean those pictures that you took back in? I got them. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Brian, my former DJ friend.
Yes. Yes, sir.
By the way, great blab.
Thank you.
I once got Jay Bear, but he jumped out. Ted, been a long-time follower. Loved your content. Love your tweets. Love all the things you stand for. So I'm not going to sit here and think about things to say. I just 3 real quick questions. In a noisy world, I mean, it's the same thing I asked Gary Vaynerchuk when I met Gary a couple months ago. I sat and looked him in the eye and goes, what's your biggest distraction, right? And how do you overcome it? Because with 300,000 followers on Twitter, with boatload of followers on Instagram, people grabbing you for blabs. Brian, kudos to you for getting Ted here on a blab, spending a lot of valuable time. You have to really think about what your time is worth. How do you get through all the distractions? What's your biggest distraction and how do you overcome it? Are my 2 questions. I have one more and then I'll back out.
Okay, well, first I want to make something clear. It's me who got Fanzo here. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that. And by the way, he's freaking committed to doing it with me every week, so don't jinx me by saying... Okay. So I want to make sure we're clear there. My biggest distraction is this stuff unto itself. It's part... What I say to people is be careful about making part of your personal brand responsiveness if you're not prepared to be responsive. So part of my personal brand is, and by the way, this is something that is me. I hate not getting back to people right away. When people thank me all the time and they go, oh my God, it's amazing. I email you, I hear right back. Well, please, it's okay to thank me, but truth be told, I'm really doing it for myself. Right. Because it's part of who I am and it's part of my personal brand. But my biggest distractions are the platforms themselves. And what I find is that every once in a while, I just need to realize that I've got to get up in the morning and I've got to set up my order. What do I do first? What it used to be is I would just jump around. I would pick up my phone. I would jump to Facebook. I'd jump to Twitter. I'd jump to other things. Now what I do first every morning is the first thing I look at is emails. And what I'm really doing is I'm just giving a quick glance to see if there's anything that's really important. Is there anything that came in while I was sleeping or while I was at a meeting or while I was whatever it is that took me away from being able to check? Because another thing I just want to throw in here is when I am with people, unless I'm just socializing or doing something, if I'm with Brian and we're talking about something, I set my phone aside. And Brian can vouch for it. We were in Phoenix spending time together. I didn't answer tweets. I didn't answer emails. I didn't answer, any of those kind of things. I also make sure to let people know what are the best ways to reach me. So if you need me, the only way to get me all the time is text. In other words, if I'm with you in a meeting, I'm going to set my phone aside. The only thing I'm going to leave on alerts is my text, because that's the way my daughters get in touch with me. And I tell you, don't just text me and think I'm going to get back to you because you need something quick. I mean, because you want to find out where we're going for dinner or let's have a drink together.
That's not critical. That's not critical.
No. But what I will do is on text, I will answer the critical things even when I'm focused on something else. But what I do now is I quickly scan email and see if there's anything there I have to answer. My next stop is Twitter. Always my next stop is Twitter. I do two things on Twitter. First, I check real quick to see what the incoming was. Is there anything I have to get back to right away? A lot of people retweet me or push out my content. And yes, I do like to thank them for it or engage, but it's not what I call important is a question. Did Anthony tweet me overnight with something that was a question? Those are the ones that I like to get to right away. Because to me, that's communication, and the timeliness in communication is important. Then I go to Twitter and see what's trending. I want to see what's happening. Truth be told, I don't have time anymore to lay in bed and watch the news, and watch for an hour. So I want to know what's important, what's happening. And then from there, I take a one-stop shop to every one of my platforms to see if there's been any incoming. I go to Instagram, I go to Facebook, I go to whatever else might be out there where somebody might have communicated. I go to Snapchat to see if anything's in there. That's my communication, to see if there's anybody I have to get back to. And then I start jumping into what happens in the ongoing day. And the other thing I've learned to do is I've learned to be real careful of to-do lists. And I read this post about 2 years ago. I forgot who it was, but it was the CEO of a major agency. I don't remember if it was WPP or Ogilvy. And it was a female. What she said was, I don't have to-do lists anymore because I never get to them. So whatever I don't like, I start the next day and I start hitting the incoming about what's happening. So what I do now is I do have a to-do list, but I try to keep it very limited to those things I have to do and the things I can't forget. So that's it, for me. And then I push a lot of it off on the people. I said earlier, I like to get bought rather than sell myself. I like people to come in and say, but I also do that if I want to reach Anthony. Oh, there you are. Ian Cleary's coming in.
Hey.
1 second, Ian. Anthony, if I want to reach you, then it's my job to put it on my calendar. If I'm chasing you for something, to put it on your calendar, to communicate in the way you want to communicate. But what I do is I put a lot of my stuff off on other people. If Anthony or Ian or Brian's trying to reach me, and every one of these guys can attest to this because I've dealt with Brian and Ian here, I say, send me a calendar invite. If we decide we're going to do something or agree on something or talk or something somewhere, the minute I'm off, because I don't have time to do it myself, if you want me, I say, send me a calendar invite. If you don't, it won't happen. Or I'll say, email me next Monday and remind me. So again, if I'm chasing you, then it's my job to do that. But the vast majority of people that are chasing me, I put it off on them. And truth be told, a lot of them who have utter emergencies, they end up never even touching back to me. Ted, I've got to meet with you. I've got something we have to talk about. I go, great. Email me on Monday. We'll get together next week. And then I don't hear from them. That's another way.
So the dividing line between trying to boil the ocean, which a lot of people try to do, and it never works because you can't boil the ocean, is you just have to So what I'm hearing is you're prioritizing. Okay, here are the top three things I need.
Yes.
This is family access. This is Anthony access, and then Brian. You notice I put my name first, Brian. and then you do a deeper dive and like, okay, if I need this, I got to respond to this.
And then every day I try to do what Bonnie pointed out. I try to reach out to people serendipitously who don't know me personally, who haven't seen me, and do something to help promote them and share for them and bring some attention to what they're doing.
Would you say you show you care, right there, Ted? I mean, and ultimately,
I would say absolutely, Brian. I try to show that I care.
Yes, and giving, right?
Right, and I think something that was really important that you said, Ted, and I love that question, is that never once did you say that who you wanted to reply was based on someone's clout score or number of followers. And I think that's kind of a misnomer, right? And someone would say, well, these big shots are prioritizing based on the followers. They would never reply to me. And you said if someone asks you a question, someone's reaching out to engage you, you're replying. That means anyone who's listening to this, Ted's prioritizing by those that are making an effort, those that are trying to care and reaching out. So I think that's a lesson learned for everybody, because it's not how many followers you have, it's the ability for you to care care and you to reach out and engage, the onus is on you.
Brian, perfectly stated. That's exactly what I do. It's on people making the effort. And I mean, look, I even communicate with guys like Ian Cleary. What does he have, like 5'12"?
I'm 6 now.
Thanks, Anthony.
Brian, appreciate it. Ted, keep rocking, brother. Thank you.
Thanks,
so
my
much.
friend. Ian Cleary, how's it going, my friend?
Not too bad. Good to see you guys online here. It's fantastic. A comment I was going to say was about email. You know, when people sign up to my email list, I have a little note in it saying, please reply and I'll interact with you. What I find is a bit sad is that some people reply and go, I'm not sure if you're actually going to reply, because people have just got used to people not actually replying to emails and stuff. So then when I get a respond back, and I always respond, they'll always go, oh God, I can't believe you're actually replying after saying you're going to reply. I mean,
I love that. You know, not all of us can put on phony Irish accents just to get attention.
I know. I'm a New Yorker.
It's really cool that you can do that. But I got to tell you that I was in London last week. Well,
Yeah.
maybe it was the week before. I'm losing track here now. And I was meeting with somebody, and I mistakenly wrote, I'm meeting with Ian Cleary. And I had to tell you, people are like, oh my God, Ian's in London? Holy cow. He didn't tell us. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm sorry. That was a mistake. I'm sorry I wrote that. So I just want to let you know, people are like, they were jumping out of the seats.
Wow.
But I just wish I could do that Irish accent thing, because, man, it's working for you.
It is, you know. I'll have to, I live in New York and everything, you know. I've never been to Ireland.
I love it.
So what's going on, buddy? How's everything with you? Why don't you?
Good.
I'd love to hear you jump in here a little bit. By the way, I love your point about the email and expectations, because what I try to do is I tell people all the time, you will never get a LinkedIn invite from me without a personal note. You will never get an acceptance of a LinkedIn request, even if it came without a personal note back to you. These are the things that set you aside, that have people notice you, that build your awareness. Ian, why don't you share with us, because you've done such an amazing job of building your personal brand.
Thank you.
I think Brian and I would love to hear you just give a little bit of input on some of the things you've done other than the email.
Well, the email is, to me, that's social. People that don't treat email like social is ridiculous, because that's one of your best ways of building a community and getting engagement and stuff.
I like to say that Pony Express was social media.
Yeah.
This is all social, so that's a great point.
Exactly, I do little things at times. Like today, I'm at Social Boom, the conference starting tomorrow. It's Kim Garrett's conference. I'm monitoring the hashtag, and when people are saying, oh, who's going to the event, I'll reply and say, hey, I'm going, love to meet you. If somebody says they're traveling, I'll reply and I'll chat to them and stuff. And they love that just people are there interacting and chatting and stuff. That, I try to respond to people as much as possible. Any questions that come in, I'll always answer every single question. If people come in and email me and say, hey, I'm starting a podcast, I've no audience, nobody will listen to it, but I'd really appreciate if you did it, then I'll do that podcast. Because I'll go, this person's been genuine and honest, and we were all starting off with no followers, and I've only got 5 Twitter followers now, but we all started off with no followers and stuff. So you love the honesty. I love dealing with honest people that are open and honest, and that's what I'm about. I'm just a normal guy that likes people. I like chatting with people. Building relationships with people is just meeting people, having a drink, having a bit of fun, and then seeing if we got something in common that we can do something with each other,
Absolutely, man. Listen, Ian, before I forget, make sure to tell Kim to send our best, give some big hugs.
Yes.
I will, absolutely.
Knock it dead. We're all pulling for you.
Yeah, and everybody that's on here, if you don't know Ian Cleary, you're missing out. They're RazorSocial.com. I might claim that I know a lot about tools. That's the guy that does. And so I always like to, Ian's too humble to actually drop that himself. So I like to be his biggest promoter, because I tell you what, if someone asks me about a tool that I don't know, there isn't another site that I go to. There's one site I go to, and it's that guy's site that he works really hard at. So make sure you guys kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, you're rocking, Ian. I'm a big fan.
Well, I'm a big fan of you two guys as well, so I couldn't resist coming on when I seen the two of you here, And you'll have to come to Ireland someday.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I know Samantha Kelly's trying to get me over there.
Yeah, I've never been, so I would love to. Thanks so much, Ian.
Yeah. Okay, guys. I'll drop out.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
What happened to Eric? He was there?
He was there, and then he disappeared. I don't know where he went. Hi, Kristen.
Hey, Kristen.
Oh, we can't hear you.
You can just By the way, we can both read lips.
My sound always takes a while to actually get in.
You're good now.
There we go.
Okay,
Perfect.
cool.
Because, by the way, we can't really read lips.
Maybe a little bit like you or something like.
I can do that, right? Right. That's the only thing I can do with sign. Also, I love.
I know. Thank you. That's my big one.
I love it. So, what's up, Kristen? What say you? Do you have a question or a comment, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, so I've always really respected how Ted, how you talk about the problems that you had, with trying to hold on to girls, and I've gone through that too. Did you ever have a point where you were like, maybe this is gonna hurt the people that look up to me? And was there ever any part of you that questioned the message that you were sending, or that you were, how you would come off, and if people would lose respect for you professionally?
Great question.
You know what? There's a Dr. Seuss saying that says, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. And it's something I've always said to my daughters. It's something I live by myself. It's something I was taught by my dad my whole life. My dad was the guy that changed into his work clothes for the garden in the garage in his underwear, and didn't care when the neighbors laughed or made fun. Okay, that's it. But truth be told, my daughters are everything to me. And if anybody has an issue with the way I fight for them, or I fought for them, or I continue to fight for them, because unfortunately it's a never-ending battle, well, then they can find another place to hang out, and they don't have to hang out with me. So, that's something you should never be ashamed of. And I have to tell you that I've never, other than the haters, the people that would look at pictures of me and my daughter and say I was touching them inappropriately because they were 8 years old and I had my arms wrapped around them, or, other stupidity that comes out of these kind of things. And to me, I ignore haters, and if there's somebody who's critical of what I'm doing and they're giving me feedback that has some kind of appropriateness and reason in it, I'll definitely listen to it. But listen, if you're fighting for your kids, do whatever you have to do. Be there for them. For me, it's just an ongoing battle. It's part of my no let up. I'm going to see my daughter at University of Pennsylvania on Saturday, September 26th. And that was a major thing, just for her to say it was okay, because she worries that her mom will find out and that she'll get some grief on that end. And, it just doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me if people think there's a problem with that. Look, that's right here.
You know what?
You fight for your kids, and you don't worry about what anybody else says. Just make sure that you're doing what's right for them and not what's right for you.
No, and Kristen, I'm glad Kristen asked that, because I think that's something, Ted, you are great at leading with your heart and kind of being who you are, and that helps us drive change. Because I actually had a senior level executive working at a government contracting company, and he actually told me, he said, Brian, if I had to give you one bit of advice, I would not brag so much about being a dad on social media. It probably doesn't mean you're going to make a good CEO. And it offended me beyond belief, to the point where I made sure that he saw every post I had and how proud I was to be a dad. But I think it's part of that, where before, I believe we lived in a culture a little bit that people hid that, and they wanted people to think that they were perfect and think that nobody else went through the same things, and we all don't have struggles, and so for me, when people like yourself, Ted, that embrace it, I had a Snapchat where I just talked about being diagnosed ADHD and how Adderall affected me, and the amount of people that it inspired. I have people still messaging me 3 weeks later being, Brian, can we talk about this more publicly? I had no idea you did. But I think it's part of that idea that I love that you're not afraid to. I think more leaders need to not be afraid of who they are, and not be afraid to say, hey, this is what matters to me the most, and if you don't like it, don't work with me. Because the scary part is, if you don't have the luxury, you will lose business sometimes with some of those things, but you're losing the business that you don't want anyhow, because those are people you don't want to work with at the beginning. So I love that question, Kristen, because Ted is a leader in that space.
Two more points I want to make is that I just want to reiterate what I said, that make sure you're doing it for your kids, not for yourself. When my case ended in 2010, everybody reached out. Jerry Springer, they all wanted me on this show. Good Morning America reached out. And I got a call from Tori Johnson, who works at Good Morning America, who's a friend of mine. She said, Ted, this could turn into a show for you, because they're looking for a dad advocate. And I said, but you're missing the point. I don't want to be a dad advocate. I want to be a kid advocate. And if they want an advocate for kids, then I'm your guy. But I'm not. But they wanted controversy. They wanted me saying that dads aren't being treated properly, and that dads have to fight for certain things. For me, it's about the kids. And if, like I said, if they wanted a kid advocate, every kid deserves to be able to love both parents without fear of retribution from either side. And that's what I'm passionate about. So, and then the other side of it, back to the corporate thing, I get more outreach. I get more connections. I build stronger relationships with CEOs and CMOs of Fortune 500 companies because of the stuff I write about my kids than about the stuff I write about marketing. I get guys that walk up to me at conferences. I mean, I'm talking about top-level guys who look at me and go, dude, that post about you and your daughter learning how to surf in Costa Rica, or, you know, you really hit me right here when you talked about fighting for your daughter. And, you know, these are guys that maybe can't talk about it or just love the fact that you are. So I think people embrace it much more than you think. And remember another thing. Too many people in social media worry about when one or two people come on and complain. Brands worry about this. You know, if there's one or two people complaining, the odds, and remember how many followers you have or other people have, that means everybody else is not complaining. Don't take one or two complaints as a signal that you're doing something wrong.
I love it. I love it.
Really great point. Thank you so much. I'm going to go off so that someone else can come on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kristen.
Bye, Kristen.
And I think Kristen even said, I think Kristen has 6 kids. So I said, you know, I said I have 3, and that's crazy enough. 6 would make me go more than crazy. So kudos to her. That's damn impressive.
I'll tell you a quick story about that. You know, because I'm with you, but I used to work with this guy in an office. He was an attorney, and he used to take a 3-hour bus ride to work every day and 3 hours home. And I said to him, like, what are you, nuts? Why the hell do you live so far outside of New York and work here in New York? He goes, Ted, I've got 7 kids at home. And there's not a minute of any day where one of them doesn't have a problem. The only peace I get in my life is on that bus. And yes, this was before social media. This was before everybody had cell phones. I don't think that game would work anymore. No. Victoria.
How's it going, Victoria?
Hello, I'm well, thank you. Nice to see you, Brian, as always. And nice to meet you face-to-face, Ted, as well. I just think you are awesome. If I could carry around you guys in each pocket each day, I would be over the moon because you're like the nicest people.
I'm so glad you said awesome because, you know, I was just in the UK and, of course, the word brilliant is now part of my vocabulary. I use it about everything. But I was told that people in the UK don't like the term awesome.
I love it. But I think that's because I'm on Blabberlot and
that's awesome.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. No, it was just to say sort of how inspiring you guys are, and not really to add a point or ask a question, but just say how like inspiring you guys are, and particularly like, you know, Ian Cleary, who jumped in the room as well. I don't know whether he's still in here, but I messaged Ian a couple of weeks ago direct and said, Ian, would you have any time to have a Skype? And he was so gracious. Had a Skype with me, really, really like helped me out, and like you guys just rock, and I'm so grateful for everything you're doing because you're just awesome, and like you two are like a pair, a real double act. So I just wanted to say thank you so much because.
Well, Victoria, thank you. Are you based in London or outside of London?
No, I'm in Nottingham in the Midlands.
And how far is that from London? Because I'm clueless.
About an hour and a half on the train.
Okay, well, I'm back in London the week of November 16th.
Okay.
Mark that down, reach out to me, and I'm emceeing and hosting a Brand Innovators Conference. Maybe we can get you on the guest list and you can come over.
I would love that. You are an absolute gentleman. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you so
Victoria,
oh my God, it's Paul Bradley Smith.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, how you doing? This is my first real
I always thought that you were just like a picture on social. I didn't even think you were.
I know. I was actually, when he popped on, I go, yes, I get to finally meet Paul.
I figured he was just like fake or something.
Yes, because Paul, you were awesome.
That's what Blab does. It brings out the reality. No, I wanted to thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for all your help in personally branding, helping me with my brand. I'm connected. I just still to this day, I have to pinch myself from, you know, who I've met. Ted, every time you post things, it just speaks to me. And I just have to let you know that from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate. And Brian, you too, man.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I appreciate you because there's nothing like hearing that. I mean, I don't care if you only hear it from one person in one time. It's what makes it all worthwhile because, you know, I push a lot out there. I try to share my experiences. I try to share the things that I'm thinking. And when you know that it actually resonates with people, that makes all the difference. So, you know, Paul, I got to tell you, I've seen your face obviously a lot. You pop up my feed all the time. I appreciate it. But now we're connected. Dude.
Yeah, now we're connected.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Man, I'll tell you, you guys mean a lot, and it's been great, especially helping me with my personal brand and redoing my old website that looked like, as Kari said, a 1970s pinball machine.
You can always count on Kari to give you.
No. It's no, that's very true. But in any event, I just wanted to jump in and say hey and thanks. And this is my first blab actually getting on and speaking. I was on Ian's not too long ago. But anyway, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Paul. Paul, you know what? Paul, you do a great job. I mean, I think, I talk a lot about, the idea of sharing other people's content and engaging and adding your own insights and really giving without, I'm from the school of the jab, 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 right hook. And you do an amazing job of throwing lots of jabs. And you've never once asked me for anything. And I'm impressed by people that are willing to do that and really just be great. I'm so glad we can now look at each other eyeball. But if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I would love, I owe you back plenty of, you can right hook me anytime because the jabs are something that mean a lot to me. And you've done an amazing job of that. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thanks. Both of you all have done a lot for me. And I believe in sharing, when I first started in social media, a lot of it was like it's amazing at how much I've changed through the years, of posting things, hoping, all of that. And the more you get involved and the more you share others, content and stuff that means to you, that just comes back. It just goes back to the old, age. I have a 5-year-old and it's like, we're teaching him to share. He's an only child. And I'm like, the more you share, the more it's gonna come back to you. And that's how I feel. And I've always had that. And when Brian brought up Shareology, it hit me square in the eyes. Like, wow, this is where I need to be. And then meeting all of you through social media, it's been fantastic. And Blab brings this to a reality.
It does.
It makes video social. So, Paul, thanks for stopping in.
Thanks so much, Paul.
Thank you.
We got to jump over to Dawn because I've been enjoying myself watching Dawn's eye. So it's real. What's one of the funny things about these platforms is that people are doing multiple things at once. So if you watch their eyes, so I'm watching Dawn. I'm curious what's in the upper left that you kept looking at.
I got 4 monitors.
Ah, okay. Because I noticed you looking up for a long time at the upper left and then down to the lower right. And it's kind of fun to watch people do that. So, Dawn, how are you?
I am fabulous. Yeah. I'm the queen of multitasking. So, yeah, my family jokes with me that I'm landing 747s in the side yard because I've got 4 different monitors. So I move things from one monitor to another.
Love it.
I love that. I multitask also, but I've kind of stuck with my laptop, my iPhone, and my iPad. I haven't really set up the 4 monitor thing, but I like that idea. I might have to move to that.
Yeah. Just don't tell your chiropractor, my chiropractor, because I sometimes I get a kink in my neck because I usually have the same thing on this screen, and then I go back and forth, and he's like, "Why is your neck sore right there?" I'm like, "I'm constantly going like this."
Don't have to worry about that. I gave up on chiropractors a long time ago. So, yeah, I did.
So
I felt that like self-fulfilling prophecy. The more I went to them, the more I wanted to see them, and the more I had to see them. So I realized that so much of it is up here. I just kind of walked away from it.
I only go if I have an issue. So about 5 times a year I go, and they'll be like, I don't deal with the ones where like you need to come every other day or whatever. But
right.
No, I just had to come on. I don't think I've been on a blab with Ted, so I had to come on and say hi.
Well,
personally, I don't know if we have or not, so I wanted to. I know that I've been on with Brian a couple times, and I just had to tell somebody because I'm like ready to explode. I've been meeting with this couple who are trying to go to a trade show, and they were talking about social media, and it was a referral, and I got them. And so today, they thought they had hung up the phone, and they were talking, and they hadn't, and I had it on speaker, and I was getting ready to hang up. And, you just love those conversations when you hear something that wasn't meant. And this gal says to me, she goes, I'm really surprised that, one, she's a woman, and that, two, she's as old as she is, and she's that much into social media.
Wow.
What the heck?
Well, good for you for proving them wrong.
Me, a dumb woman, and that I'm old,
Well, apparently you proved them wrong, though. So if they would have had their idea of what, I think that's probably a misconception across the board. So kudos, that's always good. Good for you for doing that.
But it was funny, and yes, their rate just doubled.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I don't blame you. But yeah, thanks so much, Don. Thanks so much for jumping on. How are you, Kristen Cardos?
Kristen, how are you?
I just had to come on and tell a couple things. First of all, my blab shirt.
I like your blab shirt. Looking good.
I have a flower on it. I'm trying to keep it unique. And then also, Ted, I am barefoot today as well because I prefer that. So we're bonding over the au naturel feet situation. And just big kudos to you, Ted. I love you. I think you're awesome, and I'll keep that to a minimum. But you're very good about being responsive and walking your talk. And
thank you so much for always sharing, always being there. I think I see your face every day, so it's become kind of part of my life.
Well, I tell you what, Ted, Kristen is the heart and soul between the communities that I work with, and I get to work with her and talk to her. Her and Rachel Miller and Vincenzo and I have a call every week together. And Kristen is the rock star. She is awesome across the board. And so I love knowing that you see her face everywhere, because people are going to see her face more and more because she's doing awesome things. And that makes me happy knowing that alone.
Insane. Thank you, Brian.
Kristen, thank you so much. Eric, don't leave this time, dude.
I'm trying. I'm trying to stay. I really am.
All right, I think you're here now. So how's it going, Eric?
Okay. Great, Brian. Thanks for this opportunity. Hello, Ted. And like I've sent you a text, I said I've never seen you before. I came in, and from the first word, I could see your confidence, and I could see how well you can reach across. And that was evident. You didn't have to say anything, really, but the way you sound and the way you kind of hold yourself and the way your passion is literally what comes across. And that's my question, really. Because I made a kind of on purpose, I didn't even look at your profile, because I said, okay. And I also heard you say, well, first time people, I try and reach out to them and make them feel. I heard you say it, and I said, you know what? Then I will not even read what you've done. I will just take you as you are, without the history, but as you are, sitting in front of me right now. And I'll ask you the question, in terms of, for a very, very long time, I've been teaching, because I teach inner development, and I've been saying that uniqueness and individuality of a human being is going to be more and more important with every day we're moving forward, as we're shifting from looking alike and being alike to being individuals and being unique. And that is something that I teach how to develop inside, and then from the inside out, you start wearing the clothing on who you've become. So my question to you is, I know some of us are a lot more, genetically inclined to be more out there and more confident, and again, environment or genetics and everything coming together, our history, everything we've done, that whatever we had to overcome shapes us. But my question to you is, how much of inner work are you actually doing to come in here today and be so confident no matter what? And that no matter what, how much is it inner work? How much is it genetics? How much is it environment? How much is it experience? How much is it... I'll let you answer if that makes sense to you.
I got it. It's all up here, man. It's mindset. So I like to say it's attitude, perspective, which leads to mindset. And, it's all up to you what you decide you want to do. So, it's funny. And Brian Fanzo and I have had this conversation. People think that we're naturally outgoing and because we're out here on these channels all the time. But Brian, truth be told, Brian and I are both naturally shy. Okay, my natural tendency is to not want to move into new situations, is to not walk into a room where I don't know anybody. Well, once I know you, I'm not shy. Once you're my friend or you're my parent. When I was a kid, everyone said I never shut up. But it was only the people I knew well, whereas I get into a room with new people and they say, what are you talking about? He doesn't talk that much. Because there I'd be quiet. So what I've done is I've made a personal decision. And that personal decision is I want to build relationships. I want to get out there, and I have to consciously think about it. I will walk up to a new event, and I'll wake up in the morning. I'll go, shit, why the hell did I say I was going to go to this thing? Like, I don't want to go to this thing. I'll get to the door of it, and I'll go, shit, I don't know anybody. I'm not. And then I just push myself. And I've done this my whole life. I used to be afraid of the dark. When I was 11 years old, I locked myself in a room. I put a towel under the door. I sealed up every piece of light in the room just to get myself used to it. I walked around the house to make sure, okay, Ted, there's no monsters in the house. There's no other people in the house. I'm safe. I'm going to try to help myself do this. I've made this with defaulting to happy. So, I learned this from my kids. I learned this from watching children. Children default to happy. I certainly do not default to happy. I don't know many adults that do. Matter of fact, I don't think I know any adults that naturally default to happy. We default to stress. We default to angry. We default to upset. We default to many different things. Okay, but what I've done is now I'm a New Yorker. When someone bumps into me, my natural tendency is to say, "What the fuck?" But what I've learned to do now is I've made a decision that I'm going to default to happy, that I'm going to just be nice. And now when people bump into me, I take a breath, I smile at them, and I ask them, can I help you with something? Or where are you looking to go? Or I just smile back at them, and they don't know what to do with it. So I think again, all of this conversation is going back to, it's about attitude, perspective, which leads to mindset. If you make those decisions, if you decide that I am going to overcome some of those, now listen, some of us have medical difficulties. Some of us have psychological difficulties. We can't overcome those. I am not the guy that's saying, what do you mean you're depressed? Wake up in the morning and change your attitude. I don't want to get that wrong. What I'm saying is, for those of us that don't have those medical issues, it's just something else holding us back. It's all up to making that decision in our heads. And if you do have medical difficulties or psychological difficulties, it is also up here making a decision to get help, to find friends, to get people who can help you through that. So to me, again, it all goes back to mindset. And there's a great book about this, by the way, called Mindset. The name of the woman who wrote it is not in my head right now. I've written about it on my blog, and it's a great book to read about with your kids, because too many of us place our kids in a mindset, and we get placed in it. Someone says, you're not good at that, or that's not something you do. Again, it's up to you. It's not up to other people.
Ted, I love that conversation, because I think, not only mindset, but, I think it's also a little bit of understanding you surround yourself with people that make you better and not just that are yes men. Because I think confidence also comes from people that keep it real, and they'll tell you when you suck, or when you can reach out to them and say, let me know if I should do this or I shouldn't do that. And, people were laughing about the shy comment, and I can tell you, that surprises a lot of people. For me, I hate forced conversation. I am not one. If I don't know somebody in the room, you will not see me being the center of attention. Like you, Ted, if we know somebody in the room, it's a different mindset. But I also think part of this whole conversation is really back to what we started with, personal branding. I mean, being yourself, it makes all of that so much easier. People ask me, they're like, well, Brian, how do you think on your feet? I'm like, well, if I don't know the answer, I say I don't know. And if I do know the answer, I answer it. And it's
absolutely. And I see too many people on panels who think they're supposed to be know-it-alls, and they're answering questions they don't know the answers to. I'll just say that's not my wheelhouse. I don't really have the answer to that. And by the way, I just remembered the author's name. The book is called Mindset. The author is Carol Dweck, Dweck.
No, and go ahead, Eric, and then we'll jump over to Wade real quick.
Yeah, just 2 words. To summarize everything you've said right now, Ted, could I say that you just choose your challenges instead of waiting until they push you, and therefore you're able to step up to the plate and find yourself there? Is that what it is?
I think that's fair enough, yes.
Thanks so much, Eric.
All right.
All right, Wade.
What's going on, man?
Wade, you're the last one.
All kinds of good things.
You're the last one in the hot seat, so we're gonna let you get the last question in from the hot seat. So bring it on.
Great. Just like there's no pressure on. You talk about being shy. I mean, I get up and I can talk to anybody, but I'm like nervous at all get out just to get in here and ask a question. Is my nose powdered? What's wrong with all this stuff? Really, really crazy.
You're looking mighty handsome, Wade, so don't worry about it.
Well, thank you. You too. My question almost sounded so selfish after this great launch of empathy and being authentic and sharing about being your passion. I'm like, dang, I'm not going to ask this question. It sounds so self-serving, okay? But here's my question, all right? In my self-serving manner so I can serve other people. Anyway, I'm an Orthodox old Catholic priest, all right? I help people. I'm involved with a lot of different things. And, when I started getting all this, I joked around with people that, hey, I want to be a televangelist, all right? This was back in the day. but they don't know me. But see, when we're talking about branding, all right. Now, so when you see Friar Wade, you think, okay, Friar Tuck, what's up with that? So that's kind of a cool brand that I got to stick with, all right? And I'm a pretty normal, real guy, all right? But my last name is Faunastock. So you got Wade Faunastock. So it's like, okay, do I use at Wade Faunastock or at Friar Wade? And then when somebody sees the FR, they can think of it as Friar, or they can think of it as Father, you know? But when I'm on Blab here, I'm not peddling religion. I'm talking, to people and just being real, or talking social media or whatever. So in an effort to really be me, who that's all I want to be, okay, and not some sanctimonious pompous, all right? So any input on that, any observation?
I look at it, for me, I think part of it, I could tell when you were describing the Friar Wade side, that it was kind of like the passionate side comes out, right? There's a little bit of like, hey, this is kind of what I'm representing right now. And I think it also kind of adds a little bit of creativity. And it seems like that's something that you kind of want to be who you are and not kind of be pigeonholed before you're able to kind of present who you are. So, I mean, for me, like for the iSocial Fans brand part of me, like the reason that I don't go to the Brian Fanzo side is because I know that I can stand out from the crowd. There's lots of Brians, but there's only one iSocial Fans. And so ultimately, even when someone introduces me and they introduce me as iSocial Fans, I never correct them because they'll remember iSocial Fans. They won't remember Brian because there's plenty of them. Some spell their names wrong. But I think there's an element where if you're focused on SEO and personal branding to be found and discovered, it's really important to be first name, last name, and be discovered. But I also think it's also important to have an identity and own it. So if the Friar Wade element of it for me is what you feel that you can own and is who you are, I say go 100% for it. I don't know. What about you, Ted?
No, I love it because it's something different. First of all, you're not Brian and Ted. You're very focused on who you are as a priest, as the friar, as whatever it is that you're doing. So that's number one. I like it. Number two is let's always keep in mind that you've got to do what you're most comfortable with. So if you're more comfortable with Friar Wade than you are with Wade Faunastock, or whatever happens to be, I'm not making fun. I'm just
no, that's fine.
Then again, there's lots of advice of what's the best way to go. But in the end, you have to go with what you're most comfortable with. I was just talking to somebody the other day, a woman who's starting a new fashion company. She's the wife of a friend. She reached out for some advice. And one of the things we were talking about is that, sure, I want to look good, but there are some days I just want to be comfortable. And that's most important to me. And part of my brand is I dress when I speak, and I wear vests, and I wear fancy socks, and I stress a little bit when I'm traveling about what I'm going to pack. Unlike Brian, I can't just throw in 3 pairs of jeans and 4 T-shirts and a couple of hats, which, by the way, I envy that. I've got to figure out what's going to go, but comfort is very important. There are some days where I just feel I've got to be comfortable, and I've got to be comfortable with whatever I'm doing. So it sounds to me like you have found something in Friar Wade, and you're comfortable with that. Therefore, I say drive a truck through it, baby.
All right, sweet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for jumping on, and you did a good job. No reason to be to stress or worry about your powdered nose.
I got to go find the coffee now.
All right, thanks.
Oh yeah.
All right, Ted. So I love.
I don't know about you, Brian, but it's approaching cocktail hour.
It is approaching cocktail on a Friday, and I love that we're doing this on Friday because I think this is kind of, it's a great way to kick off the weekend. I love hearing, we were so thankful for all the amazing comments that are coming across, people saying that, they're inspired or motivated or excited to do things. But, I think for me, I want to kind of the personal branding thing, just kind of put a bow on it from my perspective. I think part of what you were saying to Friar Wade there at the end, be who you are, own it, and be comfortable with it. And I think ultimately people remember you because you make a difference and you're memorable because of the experience you create. And I think it doesn't really matter what your name is, as long as you're focused on making a difference and making that experience. And, Ted, you do that on so many people. That's why people are getting on here so excited to see you. And I think too often people kind of say, well, they don't remember me because I'm going to change my Twitter handle. Your Twitter handle doesn't make you memorable. You make you memorable. And I think that is the most important lesson of personal branding. And I learned so much of that from you, Ted. So I'll kind of give you the final words as we wrap episode number 2 of No Let Up.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. First of all, my low battery thing just came on. It says I only have 8% left. So if I get cut off, you'll know why. But look, oh, shut up. My system UI server is now warning me that I have a low battery. So, look, like I said earlier, this is the age of influence. Anybody out there can build a brand. You can make a difference in your town. You can make a difference in your community. But it's all about just letting people know who you are, reaching out to people, being real, being transparent, being authentic, trying different things, experimenting. Remember, being authentic doesn't mean you have to be the same way every time. You know, because being authentic is being who you are, but connecting with people and figuring out what's the best way to connect with them is a whole different thing. And that's what a lot of you have to keep in mind. And I like that, you know, I talk about return on relationship, and I say relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more powerful they become. And it's the same thing, you know, when I say look people in the eye digitally, what I'm trying to say is connect with people. And that means, just like when I'm talking to you, Brian, now, and I'm looking at you, and I know you're looking right at the screen, you're looking right at me, it also means finding out things about people, looking up what they're about, checking out their LinkedIn profile. All that information is out there for you. So listen, everybody, the bottom line is be yourself, do what's best for you and your family, have some fun, rock on. It's Friday. Make it a great weekend, and we will see you next Friday from Brand Innovators, Fashion and Beauty in New York with Tony Luisi, the man who introduced me to No Let Up.
We'll be live. The link is right there in the comments, so click on that link. Make sure you guys subscribe, and we'll be live together in New York City.
And get this on your calendar. Every Friday, 3 o'clock, I'm going to be there with the inimitable, the amazing, the awesome, authentic Brian Fanzo. And Brian, do me a favor, just to make me feel good for the weekend, give those little girls just the biggest hugs for me.
I will, I promise. Thank you, Ted. Love you, man. Thank you, everybody. Cheers. Bye. Have a great weekend.